trying to figure something out, let's say a math problem, and it's so confusing to you and you just can't wrap your mind around the concept, but then in an instant it comes to you. This is called insight, when you realize the true nature of something through intuitive understanding. And insight actually has to do a lot with creativity, and there are many theorized ways about why some people are more creative than others and how they come to these flashes of insight quicker than other people. But what I was mainly interested in is what scientifically goes on in your brain when you have these flashes of creativity and how we can increase this creativity. And scientists are now able to look inside our brains and see these sparks when they happen. And they happen when we're not thinking methodically and logically, but through insight. And tools of neuroscience are able to help aid in this process. And insight is actually really hard to study because it's fleeting. It comes and then it goes in an instant. And so there was a recent study done that induced lots of insight. Take a look at these 3 words. What one word goes with the 3 words sauce, crab, and pine? Well, at this point you're probably thinking, well, nothing goes with these words because they have nothing in common. But now you should ask yourself, well, how am I trying to solve this problem? Am I testing out one word after the other? That's the analytic way of solving a problem. But after a while, you may just get it. And if you haven't already thought of the answer, it's apple. Applesauce, crab, apple, and pineapple. And so a team of scientists actually tried to capture these moments of insight, and they put an EEG cap, or an electroencephalogram cap, on a volunteer, and they were trying to measure her brain activity when she was solving these problems. So the volunteer was given 3 words, much like the ones I asked you before, and after she came up with the one word that was in common with all the other ones, they asked her if she came to the answer through analytics or through insight. And they realized that there are certain parts of your brain that react when you're solving these problems. And so these flashes of insight were found in what is called the anterior and superior temporal gyrus. And during this time, the left side of the brain doesn't really react, but the right side does. And high energy gamma waves erupt in this part of the brain, and the brain cells branch out far to the other side, and they're able to pull distant, unrelated ideas. And so the brain cells that branch out on the right side are a lot longer than the ones that branch out on the left side, so they're able to pull these unrelated ideas. And these moments may seem instantaneous, but there's a lot of things that happen leading up to this moment. And so before this aha moment occurs, there are a burst of alpha waves that erupt in the brain that temporarily shut down the brain. And this allows new ideas to come forth, and it leads to much more awareness because it cuts off distractions. And so now you may ask, does this mean there's some deep creative potential within us all? And so there are certain ways we can enhance our creativity. One being, we can change our routine. And changing our routine and experiencing new things can actually change our brain. And we as humans need to overcome what is called functional fixedness, where we do the same thing the same way every time. And so changing our routine can help in this process. And another way is to let your mind wander. Have you ever wondered why we have the best ideas when we least expect? Well, it's because when we let our mind wander, we allow ideas to move freely from our subconscious. And when we do this, our frontal lobe, which is right above our eyes, is slightly pulled back. And so our brain goes into this sort of temporary sleep mode, and this is easily induced by doing things that don't strain your brain, such as running or meditating or swimming. And coming back to the question of, well, why are some people just more creative than others? Well, some people are naturally hyperfrontal, which means their frontal lobes are a little less active all the time, and so they're not controlling, their frontal lobes aren't controlling them all the time, and so they're more likely to have these flashes of insight and just think divergently overall. And so if you're stumped, you should let your mind go off on its own tangent and then come back and see what you come up with. So I tried to relate this to myself, and I'm really into art, and so a few weeks ago I was creating the last piece for my portfolio, And like many students, when something is due, I started my last piece about 2 days before the deadline. And so, needless to say, I was majorly stressing out. And I was also really frustrated because the paint I was using wasn't really blending well, and the brushes, it just didn't work out. And I tried different types of brushes, thicker paint, and anybody who has painted before may know my struggles. And then I let my mind go off on its own tangent, and I started to think about how when I was a kid and I used to finger paint all the time. And then I tried to paint with my fingers, and it started working. It didn't look streaky, and it blended smoothly. So that was great. And it was such a simple idea, I was almost dumbfounded that I hadn't thought of it before. And so a day before the deadline, along with my dirty painted fingers, this is how my painting turned out. And I ask you once in a while to let your mind wander, and if we all do this, we all may become a little bit more creative.